implementation of the new Naira note. The reps have actually opposed the deadline extension coming from the CBN. Good morning and welcome to the Dailies on Effort Television International. Today being the 30th of January 2023. I'm Sarah Elisha Dasherman. Rachel, of course, is here with me. Good morning, Rachel. How you doing?
I'm fine.
How was the weekend?
It was fine. Thank God.
All right, great. So happy to hear you. Even though with all that is happening, we also have the fact that today happens to be, I think it's called the School Day of Non-Violence and Peace. And even though it's not very common around, we are very common with Nigerians, but then it's being celebrated worldwide to actually, preach peace and also non-violence in schools. And when it first originated in Spain though, but then even with time it got to be spread around, and I think it's really a day that we should take very seriously, because it's more of schools teaching them, propagating the need for peace. And imagine teaching the importance of peace from a very tender age. You see, the child grows up knowing that I have to be united regardless of your color, regardless of where you're coming from. We should learn to live in unity and in peace. And I think I'm really happy with the day. But I hope that it will become more common. Let it not just be in a particular part or just in Spain or some parts of the country or some part in the world. But then it should be something that the UN should actually include it into the the United Days, that we do celebrate. Even though it's a national day that it's been celebrated, but I think more should be done. Let's have more sanitization in schools, primary schools, secondary schools during career day. Let us hear more talks about peace and unity, especially in the time right now that there's a lot of chaos going on. But I believe that with time, Nigerians will get familiar with the day, so I look forward to more being done in our schools.
Yes, this is very important. And it's surprising that days like this that are also very important, we are not in the full light of it, in the sense that maybe we don't have that much violence in our secondary schools and primary school. The pupils are still young. But when we go to the tertiary institution, we have a lot of cultism. We have a lot of gang attacks and all of that. So when you look at it, the international body may take it serious because they have cases of killings in schools
violence
and all of that. But then the problem with us down here is that we always sweep everything under the carpet, even when it's very clear that it's also our problem. There's a lot of cultism, and in your lifetime, one or two persons that have been a victim of gang attacks and have been killed or injured or shot. One or two persons that have lost their life to cultism and campus violence and all of that. So these are days that we need to take it seriously. Awareness should be done. Something should be taught to people, but most especially when you're leaving the secondary school, you feel the world is safe there. You probably form a little gang with your mates and you guys just did simple things. But when you carry that gang mentality to your tertiary university, you're going to be in for a bigger trouble. And then students need to know that there's category and level for everything. We have violence here too. So when such days should come, we shouldn't just keep them on a low key, but we should make it loud and big, because it's not only the foreign countries that are suffering violence in their institutions, but even here in Nigeria.
Of course, Rachel. Thank you so much for adding up to that. We're live on Facebook and also on YouTube, so we really do appreciate you. Drop your comments and also your contribution in any story that is of interest to you this morning. And later on the show, we will open the phone line so you can call us and let us hear what your views are concerning any story that is of interest to you this morning. And let's move quickly to the newspaper review, and we'll be starting with the first paper coming from Rachel.
On the Matrix newspaper, Fayemi sues Arise TV. Broadcaster for alleged defamation demands 500 million naira as damages. Why am aligning with Tinubu, coming from Chimaroke Inamani. 2023 World Leprosy Day. Leprosy conjoined disease curable. This is coming from NTBLCP. We are winning the war against oil theft, says brigade commander. And the big story on the Matrix newspaper, old Naira notes despite extension, fresh trouble looms for Emefiele. And the writer says Reps Committee rejects extension, threatens CBN's governor's arrest. 10-day extension political gimmick, not the solution, says Dogoa. New Naira design policy capable of frustrating polls, coming from Reps. Still on the Matrix newspaper, police deploy anti-bomb equipment and train officers for the 2023 election. At Edo Town Hall meeting, Tinubu promises to be a listening president, and we look forward to that. In dramatic U-turn, Ganduje says Buhari free to visit Kano as planned. We have a picture story where we can see Emefiele in Daura. President Buhari received CBN Governor Emefiele in Daura, Katsina State, January 29, 2023. Another downside of the paper, PDP Labour Party ADC Guba candidates unveil plans for Lagos State, and that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, the festival will be taking its Black Sunday, 20 killed in Lagos Ondo auto crashes. That you can find on page 6 of the Vanguard newspaper. And still on petrol scarcity, we have the NMDPRA blames smugglers for the reason why we are having the scarcity in the nation. And the big story, which is still on the Naira notes, Buhari reps heading for clash over 10-day extension. And the writer following that story, lawmakers say law must be duly followed, describe extension as mere political gimmick. Minority captors hail Apex Bank over deadline extension. All old notes to be deposited in CBN by February 17. EFCC, ICPC operative deployed in banks. Banks continue to dispense old notes, limit ATM withdrawal of new notes, why we are still dispensing old notes coming from the blanket, and we have frustrated customers beseech banks, threaten shutdown. Different strokes for POS operators, widespread rejection of old notes. All of that can be found on page 19. Osun Governor poll, I will protect your mandate, Adeleke tell protesters. You can read more of that story on page 10. And the Buhari's visit, Ganduje make U-turn, says Kanu ready to host the president. And we have other stories still flying in the paper. We have a picture story where we can see the Vanguard Personality of the Year Award 2022. So if you are interested in any of the story, do well to grab the Vanguard and read details of any story that's of interest to you.
On the Guardian newspaper, 20 die in Lagos or a road accident. You're killing Nigerians in installment, Labour leader tells Buhari. Gunmen kill 5 security operatives along Enugu-Abakaliki Highway, and you can read that story on page 9. And the big story on the Guardian newspaper, new Naira note for crisis compound Nigeria's woes. The writer says old banknote withdrawal extended to February 17 faces legal test. Reps reject CBN's extension, insist on Emefiele's arrest if he fails to show up. Currency swap deadline puts 100 trillion Naira national output at risk, says CPPE. Banks rake in 2.4 trillion Naira currency outside system, down to 25%. Youth call off planned protests at CBN headquarters. CBN to monitor sanction bags holding new Naira notes. Security consultant calls for presidential task force against saboteur. You can start on the front page for the story and continue on page 6. Still on the Guardian newspaper, Ayade yet to implement teachers' promotion since 2015. PDP Guba candidate alleges. You can read that on page 29. Buhari jettisons Ganduje security alert, visits Kano today, and you can find that story on page 3, and that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the national economy newspaper. We have the currency buying selling inflation rate of 2022, 2021, and commodity price. So you can do well by following that table closely if you are interested in exchange rate. And the big story, turnaround Nigeria's economy needs now, coming from the NE Board of Economics. Nigeria has been defined as being in a recession, presiding decline in economic activity action across the entire economy, decline in the real personal income leading to fall in consumer purchase and demand, rise in employment statistics, and declining health of the manufacturing sector are proof that the recession is truly here. And you can read more of that story. You can see the picture story of different areas, the economy that the nation can key into. We have the tech business, we have agri, we have mining, and many other, places where sectors that the economy, Nigeria economy, can key into it. So you can read more of that on page 4. 5G boosting Nigeria's indigenous firms to create job opportunities, that you can find on page 17. Lekki Deep Sea Port, a game changer. That's a question which you want to find answers, and you can look that up on page 5. Downside, we have where is the fighting ground for all fintechs, that you can find on page 10. And you need to know where the grounds are if you are interested by grappling the national economy and read any other story that's of interest to you.
On the Voice of Liberty, on 2023 election security, police get 64 billion naira for elections. Ganduje makes U-turn, says Kanu now very ready for Buhari's visit. Nasarawa killings a war crime, presidency, military silence unacceptable. This is coming from MACBAN. And the big story on Voice of Liberty, why Buhari approved old Naira deadline extension, coming from Emefiele. President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday in Daura, Kaduna State, approved the Central Bank of Nigeria request to extend the deadline for swapping old Naira notes with the redesigned notes from January 31st, 2023 to February 10, 2023. Still on the Voice of Liberty, in Zamfara, PDP, Guba candidate optimistic of Atiku's victory. West African Jollof War, UNESCO settles debate between Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal. Asari Dokubo rallies Kalibari Kingdom for Tinubu. 2023 Buhari tackling problems others ran away from, coming from Tinubu. We can see a picture story where the president, the governor of the CBN, is with the president of the country in Daura, Katsina. And that's all the news on the Voice of Liberty.
On the Punch newspaper, the big story, which is a new Naira anger spread over scarcity, reps oppose CBN extension with the rider. Customers stranded, ATMs empty as worshippers dump old notes in churches. CBN deploys 30,000 super agent nationwide to boost cash swap and program. Emefiele says 1.9 trillion naira old note deposited, project 900 billion naira before the deadline. And here we can have the House of Representatives has rejected the February 10 deadline for the phasing out of the old currency note announced by the Central Bank of Nigeria on Sunday. The House of Representatives ACO Committee on New Naira Redesign and Naira Swap Policy on Sunday described the new date as a mere political gimmick to further deceive Nigerians and worsen their economic and social livelihood. The development came as anger spread across the country over the scarcity of the new notes, with several bank customers becoming stranded due to lack of access to the new note. Retailers and traders have been rejecting the old note amid long queues at ATM galleries across the country. However, announcing the new deadline for the phasing out of the old 1,000 naira, 500 naira, and 200 naira notes on Sunday, the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele said the President, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, gave permission for the deadline to be extended to February 10 after his recent meeting with him. He also gave additional 7 days to enable Nigerians to deposit their old Naira notes after it ceased to be legal tender on February 10. Now, Richard, I would like to have your take on this. With what the CBN have done, and then we had our president with the meeting, with the fact that they want to, or they have actually extended, and not see want to, they have extended it to February 10. And I remember we've been lamenting and, being the voice of the people out there, the fact that most banks are not disposing or have refused to put in this new notes in the ATMs. This morning, there were queues in various ATMs across the nation. Some ATMs are not even dispensing, and very true, I witnessed it. Customers are stranded because as it is, people don't even have the notes to actually, run some transaction left, right, and center. But concern have also been, with the fact that what really is the problem. Even though we saw on the paper, CBN said they will actually sanction any bank that is holding the new notes. So now you begin to ask questions. Recently, during the weekend, I saw a video at a wedding where you begin to ask questions. Okay, the new notes are scarce, yet some few individuals are having these new notes. In fact, at the wedding, the video that was trending where we saw bundles of new notes being spread to the bride and the groom, I wonder, they are not even spreading it like, one, like it was in bundle, but that's just on a lighter note. So you begin to ask, okay, if that is what is happening, then why is it that the common man cannot even have access to these new notes? As it is right now, retailers are refusing to collect the money. Any even keke napep, buses, taxis are refusing to collect the old notes. And then with these 10 days, what difference would it make? If tomorrow was supposed to be, and then we have 10 days being added, now what difference would it make from when it was supposed to be tomorrow?
Of course. When it comes to this scarcity of the new Naira notes, on Friday, I remember clearly saying that one of the number one solution to this problem is an extension in the date, and it wasn't surprising to me when I saw that the CBN have moved the date to the 10th of February. It only makes sense because we know that it does take a while for anything new to circulate. We've been in Nigeria for a while, and we've witnessed one or two new Naira redesign, and we know that it was never this fast. A period of time was given for the notes to circulate gradually until everybody got it, and then we could say goodbye to the old ones. But for some reason, this one happened to have the shorter period of time, therefore putting everybody on their toe and then making life really difficult for a lot of people. And I remember I just kept on encouraging some few traders. I said, sell your market. Don't refuse to not sell because of the new notes while you still have 5 more days before the deadline, and you will refuse to. If you are to make 10,000 a day because you're refusing to collect the old note, you're making 5,000. Don't forget that this is your business. This is where you need to make ends meet. You can't just let this policy come and just make you not to be able to make a living at the end of the day. And then now moving forward, I would like to say I'm happy concerning the extension of the date. Of course, it gives us more room. It gives the Naira more room to circulate, and then for banks to do the needful. However, the problem of supply, we already know where it lies. We can speculate and we might not have our complete facts, but of course, we know that the CBN for sure doesn't deal directly with individuals, meaning now I can't go to the CBN to deposit, even if I am a mega business. Even if I am a mega business, I will not transact directly with the CBN. Even if I am even if I am Dangote, I will not transact directly with CBN. We transact with all these other banks that are in charge of distributing the Naira to the common man. So if CBN says they have made these notes available, where we are to look to is these banks that are in charge of disbursing this money. Therefore, whatever problem of supply lies with them, because they are the ones responsible of making these notes accessible to a common man, to me. We go to the ATM, we get it. Even if I am a business merchant and I need to do a transaction of 10 million, I am not going to do with CBN. If my bank is Access, if my bank is First Bank, if my bank is UBA, these are the banks that I'm going to transact whatever business I have to do. So it means these banks need to wake up and do as they are supposed to. And you can see the CBN saying that they're going to put their eyes on these commercial banks and they are going to sanction any bank that is hoarding these notes, because they are the ones with the responsibility of distributing these notes. And if they fail in doing it correctly, we are going to suffer. So they have to wake up in this period of grace and distribute these notes, make sure they are available at the ATM, make sure that a common man like you and I get access to these notes, and let's stop this problem of where it is a problem. We might say it on a lighter note. It is a problem where I can access 5,000 naira, for example, new currency, and you're seeing somebody having them in bundles, giving them as souvenirs at weddings, spraying them in such, when we know that there's already a policy on minimum withdrawal. So where is the problem? If there is a minimum withdrawal policy, it means in the first place, I am not supposed to see somebody with that kind of amount of money. So even if we talk about these happenings around us on a lighter note, it already tells us where the problem lies. It already tells us where the problem is, and we know it. So let the banks wake up and do what is expected of them. We need these news to sleep hungry.
Even though the reps will be meeting tomorrow, because we remember last week we saw in the papers where they are actually planning to arrest the CBN governor. So tomorrow they will be assembling in the house again. So whatever they finally get to talk about, we'll keep our fingers crossed, and then we'll bring it here for our viewers to know. Still on the Punch newspaper, government appointment loop-sided lack merit coming from Obasanjo. Court delivers judgment seeking 2023 post pension. So you can follow up that story on page 18. And we have other story where we can see the picture story, 11 killed in Ondo crash, Lagos container crushes 9. And this is what we keep saying about ways we move containers from one place to another. There should be a time where all of these big trucks trade the road, or they actually ply the road, because you can't stand as a risk to lots of commuters while trying to use the road. Why? Because you're trying to do your business. So imagine now, who is going to pay for the damages? Who is going to take responsibility for the lives that have been lost? And we have them even in various parts here, where you see, instead of using all these big trucks using down, they would prefer using the flyovers. And anything can happen for the flyover.
Yes.
So imagine a container falling from the flyover down to other smaller cars trading under the bridges. Commissioners of road and transport, they need to do something about it, because we are tired of recording accidents over and over and over, as if we do not have an agency, or we do not have a government that's responsible for that. So I look forward to seeing what will be done. Who are the people that own this truck, the containers, whoever is the contractors, whoever is involved, they need to be brought to book, because with all that is happening here. So just imagine 11 lives were lost just like that. Even though here we're saying 11, other people we saw 20 or so. So I just hope that whatever, even if it was just a life that was lost, it's something we need to be proactive, especially in taking up what will be done to clarify all of this.
To be honest, this is one of the things that bothers me about Nigeria, that we're not even able to be consistent in little things. This is something that could be avoided, and this is something that shouldn't even be recorded as a problem in this country. Just as we said it, we know the way forward. There's no how these kinds of cars, bigger trucks, container trucks, trailers, should be functioning at the same time with commercial cars moving up and down, just carrying people and businesses. These are simple laws that the road safety, the federal shipping, movement, logistics is in big quantity. There should be a time frame for everything, just to make sure that the lives of people are not endangered by this kind of thing. Because imagine if this was to fall on another bigger truck, number one, there won't be any human being in it. So it will just be a minimal damage. It might even get a support on a bigger truck, and it might not even fall. But by the time it is falling down on a bus, this is something that there's no way that lives won't be lost. And I wonder, these are simple road rules, safety measures that need to be put into laws. And we can't even make that possible in this country, to make sure that no life is being lost through something like this. So it worries me when I see simple things that we should be done and over with in this country. It's still a problem when it shouldn't be a problem. I'm just looking forward to where everybody will wake up and really do that tiny thing that will paint a bigger picture in this country. That's the only way we can thrive and grow. But we should be way past this kind of hazard in this country by now.
Of course, Rachel. And we have some other stories down where we have UN project 3% growth for Nigeria. That you can find on page 42 of the Punch newspaper. 2 Nigerians arrested for $500,000 fraud in Canada. And on JAPA, we have 2,000 doctors dump Nigeria in 2022, says the National Association for Resident Doctors. You can find more of that story on page 22, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Business AM, Africa's climate finance challenge sees hope in DI bonds. The writer says as Africa gets just $30 billion for required $277 billion. Continent needs $2.8 trillion 2022 to 2030 to implement NDCs on the Paris Agreement. You can read more of that on page 2. We have news Lekki Seaport at $361 billion bribe on finance and investment closing VAT gaps for more revenue. Then we have a comment, what's wrong with Naira redesign? You can start with that story on the front page of the Business AM and continue on page 10. And the big story on Business AM, AFCFTA's $3.4 trillion potential gets global CEOs keen interest. The writer says on the card are 4 key sectors worth $130 billion, high potential for COIs looking to invest in Africa. And we're looking forward to such investment, and we're looking forward to 4 sectors that are worth $130 billion, and then high potential for COI looking to invest in Africa. And I want to believe that Nigeria should be topping those countries that people will come and invest also. Still on the Business AM, companies and business self-awareness and business leaders, we have a column for energy, power and renewable energy, commodities and agriculture, experts on 228 billion naira agri budget. We have at the downside of the paper visionary voices, the multilateral financing paradox, executive knowledge series, global strategy challenges for companies. You can read all of that on page 15 of the Business AM newspaper, and that's all the news on Business AM.
All right, thank you, Rachel. At this moment, we'd like to take a break because we are very sure you have a lot to contribute on the stories, looking at the extension of the date, reps actually not being okay with it, and many other stories that have been on the paper. So we really love to hear from you. So when we come back from the break, do well to cut us. Please do not go anywhere. We'll be right back after the timeout. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, the program is the Dailies on Network Television International. We've been looking at various stories that have been trending on the paper this morning, looking at the 4 sectors that are going to, bring us lots of money in the nation, and also the issue with the new Naira note that's been very scarce and customers are stranded. A lot of things actually happening. So we'd love to hear from you. So do well to call us. Our numbers are displayed on your screen right now. You can also drop your comment on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll do well to read it live here on the show. I still have Rachel here with me. Thank you so much, Rachel, for doing this with me. All right, let's move forward looking at this day newspaper. Africa's premier media group commemorates 10 years of Arise News Channel, 20th edition of Arise Fashion Week, 28 years of this day newspaper. With the writer winning the Emmy Award in New York was high point for a news channel that is changing African journalism. You can read more. And we have good morning, Mr. Shamal.
Honestly, I appreciate your expression this morning. I don't know, a structure that at the platter of God to make palatable everything about this government is an upside down. So I pray that the issue of this Naira coloring that people call Naira design, what did they design about this Naira? The same money that we know is just the color that they change. So I pray that this government will do it once for the citizens to say thank you for Buhari and APC. Enough their struggle. You have to queue for fuel. You have to queue to change money. You have to queue for your children to register jam. You have to queue to collect your PVC cards. What is wrong with this country? If really we know that we are suffering, we should get it right by electing a leader that will get us out of this quagmire. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Sharma. Thank you so much for that contribution. You know, it's a test of time, and it's important that we look at our structures in Nigeria. You know, and while he was talking about you have to queue to the ATM, you know, something quickly came into my mind where someone was saying you have to queue to ATM to get the new note, you have to queue to get your PVC, you have to queue to get fuel. So which of the queues are you presently, you know? And even though it was, you know, changes, those who will change the narrative of things in the country, we have where use your PVC to vote out APC Saraki tells Nigerians. You can find that on page 8. And we have NU and the big story. CBN deploys 30,000 agents nationwide to boost cash swap as Buhari approves deadline extension. Give additional 10 days for return of the old 200 naira, 500 naira and 1,000 naira notes. And Mifede says 1.9 trillion naira of old notes so far returned. Declares Apex Bank ready to exchange legitimately earned monies. Lawmakers dividers at Elumelu backs extension. Lugwa retaliates threat to arrest Emifere. And we have don't succumb to political pressure. Blackmail former Lagos Deputy Governor tells the president. And then we have analyst loan extension. So you have to read more of that story on page 5. And we can see the picture story there where we have, okay, we have another caller. Hello, Chidi. Good morning. Hello, Mr. Chidi. Good morning. Mr. Chidi, are you there?
Is a problem
Okay, maybe
of
I'll
the government.
end the call
During
and then you call
Obasanjo,
us back again.
they
Thank
were
you so much,
recruiting
Mr.
police
Chidi. And the last story is a picture story
every month.
discussing
Police
deadline
were
for
passing out
cash
from
swap
police.
policy. That's between the president and the CBN governor. And that's all on this day newspaper.
On leadership newspaper, Obi promises to transform 20 million out-of-school children. Gunmen kill 2 soldiers, 3 policemen in Ebonyi. Custom dumps scanner at Apapa port deadline by 10 days. You can read that on page 25. The big story on leadership attacks indicates they have nothing to offer. One candidate,
Obi Atiku Tinubu lead race of the Southeast as bottle for the zone vote hot up. That can be found on page 9, 10 and 11. Federal Road Safety Corps plans stop parks for long journey drivers to reduce crashes, and I hope that they do that, not just being on our paper. But I just wish that this will be passed with immediate effect, because we really need all these long trucks you're traveling, then you see them being packed on the road, causing so much menace and all of that. So I hope that the Federal Road Safety does something. And we have Kumuyi to youth shun worldly political inventions of corruption. That is overseer of Deeper Life. You can read more of that story on page 2. And the big story. New Naira notes. Federal government yields to pressure. CBN extend deadline to February 10. Reps committee kicks against a 10-day extension. Says position of law sacrosanct. And we have the OPS caution Apex Bank on current Naira crisis, says 100 trillion Naira component of the national GDP at risk as APC, PCC, CNPP commend Buhari and the CBN. And we have the FCTA arrest 47 roadside illegal POS agents. So you can read more of that too inside the paper. And still on the tragedies, auto crashes, Lassa fever, bandit claim 32 lives in Lagos, Ekiti, Ondo, and Sokoto. 2023 staggering polls might be recipe for violence. One census postponed. You can read 24 local government have no banks. That you can find on page 4. And downside we have a study that can
24 local government areas have no banks. 5 died, 7 injured as mine collapse in billion naira still in people's homes, coming from the CBN governor. The writer says announces Buhari's approval of 10-day extension of EIC Apex Bank Governor. 9 die as container falls on passengers bus in Lagos. Gunmen killed 3 policemen at checkpoint in Ebonyi. 13 die in Ondo. Tribune Amotekun arrests 4 suspected herdsmen for alliance tell federal government. Wants government to close tertiary institutions nationwide. Jandal calls for Buhari, IGB's intervention on incessant, warns Lagos will never condone the news on Nigerian Tribune.
You know, that story on when NAS is telling federal government to allow them go home. I just hope that they actually respect the view of the Nigerian student. We saw in the paper, was it last week or last week, where about 3 million an argument. I just hope that this will be a law that will be passed, that for those period of days that will be having the election, I mean, the schools should be closed so that they will get to exercise their franchise, because it is their right. After going through the long queue to get to PVC, and you will be denied that opportunity. So I hope that the government will look in view of this and actually do the needful. All right, let's take a look at the first newspaper. Ex-Bayelsa Commissioner Awuriso Maxon hails Senator Dixon at 57. You can read more of that story inside the paper. Naira redesign 2.7 trillion kept permanently in people's home. This is coming from the CBN governor. While we are seeing in the last paper you read, it said 900 billion. And then here on First News, we are seeing that it's about 2.7 trillion naira. Well, regardless of what it is, those who are holding that money should please return the owners to the bank. And the ex-NNPP secretary dumps party, says Kwankwaso lacks capacity to rule Nigeria. And the big story for the paper, Naira redesign, reps reject extension, threatens CBN governor's arrest in 6-month deadline, says position of law sacrosanct, vow to ensure Emifele's arrest warrant on Tuesday, 10-day extension, mere political gimmick to hot week. Nigeria and why Buhari monitor bank's strong room, says the CBN. And then we have the suit seeking to sack Buhari to be delivered today, and it's happening presently as we speak right now in the court in Abuja there, as the issue of I think there was a ruling from the president of the SDP, and he said he won the election in 2019, and so today the hearing will be taking place in court in Abuja. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. Whatever the outcome of that hearing is, we'll bring it back here to our viewers to actually know what is happening. Other stories seen on the paper, we have disappointment is an energizer for me, makes me work harder, coming from Tinubu. And we have Pirate Confinity, disown viral video on 2023 presidential candidate. So you can read any story that is of interest to you inside the paper, and that's all on the First News.
On Daily Times, Nigeria's energy transition plan. State House leads way for public building. The big story, Buhari approves 10 days extension for currency swap, knocks commendation trial exercise. Made in Nigeria cars, federal government urged to create enabling environment for creative design engineers. NAFDAC plans pharmaceutical traceability to complement war against substandard drugs. You can read that on page 10. And we have a picture story that has been on most of our paper, which is the CBN's governor visiting the president at Dara. And that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, we may wake up to a Nigeria without doctors in hospitals, coming from the National Association of the Resident Doctors for the Medical Sector, that if the federal government continues to pay lip service to the development of the sector, the body says Nigerians may wake up one day to a hospital without any medical doctor, or fewer than 2,000, doctors. And this is not something we really want to go with. So I hope we do something about this. We are not tired of saying this, but I hope that it will not just be lip service, but something will be done with the Lassa fever and other, contaminated illnesses we're having, contagious sicknesses left, right, and center. I hope that the federal government will do something about that. Still on Daily Independent, APC PDP picker as talks burn APC NAS candidate residents, and you can read more of that story on page 29. The big story says 2.7 trillion naira kept in homes before naira redesign, coming from Emifede. CBN get kudos for extending the naira swap deadline to February 10. Analysts ask Apex Bank to monitor banks to avoid sabotage. Serap urges Buhari to direct the IGP to investigate attack on Peter Obi. You can read that story on page 7. And we have on 2023 election, the National Association of Nigerian Students once again disenfranchising students, asks the federal government to shut schools. APC raised the alarm. APC raised the alarm over alleged plot by PDP to mislead Tinubu, Shettima, and others. And we have NDLEA boss trans-border cartel arrests 5 Kimpi, 6 Sisuk and Met in compressors. That you can find on page 6. And northern leaders optimistic Kwankwaso will step down for Atiku. With the rider Atiku, doors are open, always open to patriotic Nigerians coming from the campaign council. And downside, we have Ganduji changes plan on Buhari's Kanu visit after all naira use deadline extension. You can read more of that on page 7. We have a picture story here, so you can do it by grabbing the paper and read any story that is of interest to you.
On the Abuja Inquirer, NYSC gets new DG, assumes office Monday. The big story, chairs as Buhari extends cash swap. Citizens tax CBN on availability of new notes. Ganduje leaves visit embark on Buhari. We will monitor banks' votes coming from Emefiele. Sharia Council to INEC hold all elections same day. And that's all the news on the Abuja Inquirer.
And on the wheel, we have Atiku, Obi, Tinubu, why allegations of corruption, nicotine, trafficking, tax evasion linger. So you can see the 3 big giants possibly with their baggages. So you can read more of that story inside the paper. And we have on global recession, Telcom to hitch Nigeria against talk. CBN national domestic cut to boost small and medium scale enterprises. And we have groaning under pastors, police, and politicians. So you can grab the wheel and read any story that is of interest to you.
On the Daily Sun newspaper, Presidency National Assembly on collusion cause over Constitution review. APC accuses PDP of plot to circulate fake news about Tinubu. The big story, 1.9 trillion naira retail banks. Reps insist Emefiele must appear before Eid. Area warns. Fair anxiety as EFCC begins probe of varsity finances. You can read that on page 6. Brace up for severe flooding this year, Nemo local government. You can read that story on page 28. I have no hands in Nasarawa killings coming from Otom, Lagos. 11 burned to death in Ore Benin Expressway accident. Government killed 3 policemen, 2 soldiers in Ebonyi. And you can read that on page 4. And at the downside of the paper, I need a saw not touched $1 billion security fund. Ex-Army Chief Buratai is saying. You can read what he has to say on page 20. And that's all the news on Daily Sun.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for doing this with me. Even though before I round up the show, you know, this story that says brace up for the severe flooding this year, Nema wants Nigerians. I hope that we take this one in serious. Yes. You know, I was shocked when I saw the first rain in Plateau, and it was on Saturday and on Sunday. And, you know, people be surprised, even though I know far inside in Plateau State, there was quite a heavy downfall in some part of the state. So let's really brace up for the work, especially in Plateau State, because that rain can actually do havoc to their crops. But then regardless, let us just brace up. We don't want what happened last year to repeat itself or worse this year. So thank you so much, Rachel, for doing this with me. Thank you to our caller. Thank you to the crew members. Thank you to the Equa executive and our supporters and followers. Thank you so much for doing this with us. Until we come your way again tomorrow, do have a blessed day ahead.